Stop thinking of vulnerability as this thing where you're just opening up about your emotions to people and, you know, I don't know, you're letting your emotional side come out. Maybe you start crying around other people. So that's obviously an aspect of vulnerability, but it's not the full picture. We've been taught as we've been growing up that vulnerability is a sign of weakness, and it's something that we should not tap into. And there's probably a good reason for that. You know, like when humans are in stressful times and situations, maybe like a wartime or something like that, yes, we probably don't need a bunch of people crying about and just fucking spewing their emotions everywhere. So it's understandable from that kind of context, especially like during hard times, why, yeah, like that kind of aspect of vulnerability is not ideal. Today, I am here to talk about how vulnerability can actually be used as a tool to improve your emotional IQ and really clean up a lot of that bullshit that exists inside your emotional system that is stopping you from functioning as a high quality human being. So let's get into it. One tool that kind of comes under the umbrella of vulnerability is vocalization of insecurities and radical honesty with other people. So basically what happens when you vocalize your insecurities around someone else and you're just in general a very honest person and you kind of you vocalize you know, your authentic feelings and all this kind of stuff. If you create a lifestyle of this, what actually happens after a period of time is that it actually purifies your emotional system. And so what do I mean by that? Well, basically what happens is when you vocalize an insecurity, you bring it into awareness, you basically force yourself to accept it. You're bringing it out into the open. You're basically telling the world, this is who I am, and I don't really give a shit about what you think because I just said it, you know. And it's so you're bringing it up and you're forcing yourself to accept it, and it becomes something that is no longer a big deal compared to if you have an insecurity and you're just trying to push it down and you're trying to act like it's not a big deal, and you're lying about maybe a bunch of stories. You're creating all these stories as to try and hide the insecurity. What that's going to happen is when you show up in the world, that's like part of your shadow, and you're going to be this human being that's trying to squash all of this true stuff about yourself. Whereas when you just vocalize all of these shadows and negativities and insecurities, and it doesn't necessarily need to be with everyday people. This could be with like a therapist, but yeah, when you vocalize it, you force yourself and kind of the world to accept it. You know, it is what it is. Yes, this is a part of my experience. This is who I am. I've been kind of gradually practicing that lately, and you only do it when it's authentic and the right moment. You're not out to kind of, you know, find a therapist in everyone. You're not just, you know, I don't know, meeting up with mates and telling the world about all of your, and you're just sharing them with all of your insecurities. No, like a lot of this stuff will actually naturally come up. Like for example, I will frequently have to tell people that I'm on a strict diet, you know, especially if I'm meeting a girl or maybe I'm meeting up with some mates and, you know, we obviously want to have lunch. Well, I can't eat that food. I will say, hey, I'm just on a strict diet. And usually they say, oh, you know, what for? And I'll say, oh, I have a few health issues. And if they keep on going, if they keep on saying, oh, you know, like, what is it? I'll just straight up, I'll just be like, oh, I have this condition called POIS. And then I'll just kind of go from there. And it's all very natural. It's all very seamless, you know, and I've gotten to a point now where I'm so honest about it. It's just not really a big deal. Whereas back in the past, I was totally insecure about it. Totally like, oh my God, like, what are these people going to think? Like, this is so fucking weird. I have a condition where every time I bust a nut, I'm literally getting these severe symptoms. And so, yeah, this is kind of why I wanted to film this type of video, is because I know a lot of you guys watching with POIS and other sorts of health issues and whatever, I mean, everyone's got some kind of insecurity, right? When you vocalize it, you get better at just accepting it. I understand, like, you know, if you have POIS and you're in those POIS symptoms, this is going to be very difficult to do, you know, and I totally understand that. And there's obviously caveats to a lot of this. But in general, yeah, I find when you vocalize your insecurities at the right times, and in general, you're just an honest human being. That's all this is. It's just about turning yourself into an honest human being. And what that does is it purifies your emotional system over time. And also what happens is you drop the ego that you're trying to carry around to look a certain way around people. And what that's doing is it's severely reducing your ability to really let go and be your authentic self around people. So when you have this ego or this shadow that you're kind of carrying around, stuffing down, and you're trying to act like someone you're not, or you're trying to act like you don't have this thing that you're trying to hide, when you're carrying around that false self, it creates a lot of stress, and you can't let go when you have that. Whereas when you vocalize a lot of this stuff, when you do a bit of radical honesty work, there's a great book, Radical Honesty by Brad Blanton, which I would fully recommend. When you start doing a lot of this radical honesty work, you kind of peel away these layers of your ego that's stopping you from letting go. And the thing that gives you fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness is in life are those moments where you are let go. You're in the moment. You're clear. You're equanimous. You're just naturally present, especially around people. You know, our most fulfilling moments with other human beings is when you're around people where you feel like you can be your full authentic self and just let go. The kind of second side of the coin, if you will, with this vulnerability stuff is look at it from the perspective that to live a great life requires an honest life, and a life where you're in touch with your deepest values, perspectives, your authentic opinions about things. And a lot of the times, especially with values, this is going to require you to do some fairly bold, uncomfortable stuff, and that requires you to be vulnerable. You know, maybe it's stepping away from a career that your heart just isn't in. To do that requires you to be vulnerable to the reality that by doing this, you may lose a bit of security. Maybe it's financial security, maybe it's friendships, if you want to be the kind of guy that goes after what he wants in his relationships, maybe you see a pretty girl on the street and you obviously want to go up to her. That requires vulnerability. That's uncomfortable. And so the good life requires vulnerability. So we've got to stop thinking of vulnerability as this like weakness and this fucking how do I put it, like this, at least in my mind, and I think in the minds of many of you, we've kind of been conditioned by society to think that vulnerability is this weak attribute, and it's like only soy boys are vulnerable sort of thing. Another point I want to add is that leaders get criticized, and if you're not getting criticized, you're probably not a leader. And so it's this idea that if you want to achieve big things in your life, I want to achieve big things in my life, I'm going to have to step up and be a fucking leader. And you've got to be vulnerable enough to put yourself in situations where, you're probably going to have to, speak about things that may be a bit controversial, or, by having a strong opinion on something, especially when you're well educated on something, it's naturally going to be controversial. You're going to be put in a position where not everyone is going to agree with you. And this is about becoming vulnerable enough to put yourself in a situation where that happens and you being okay with that. You can't please everyone in life, and especially if you're going to become a leader and create the life that you want, not everyone is going to fucking agree with everything you do. And so I wanted to kind of hit that point in today's video as well. To be vulnerable requires you to be self-honest. Why? Self-honesty and vulnerability, they go hand in hand, because by being self-honest, you're basically saying to yourself, I am going to acknowledge reality. And we're living in reality. So you want to be in reality, right? The alternative to self-honesty is lying. And so you're basically entertaining fantasies, ideas, or stories about reality and not actual reality. And so by being self-honest, you're just acknowledging to yourself and you're behaving in a way where you tell yourself the truth. And when you combine that with, inquiring into your deepest values about life, you'll get to a point where there's certain things that you want, and to go after them, in many cases, it's going to require vulnerability, especially when maybe, some of these things go against social norms, or maybe you've grown up in a hometown, you've grew up in the same friendship group for all during high school and all that, and you have all these close mates. You know what it's like. Generally, when that happens, you all have these things that you kind of agree, values that you agree upon and share, and you may find yourself one day realizing that, oh shit, I've got a different value, and that's going to require vulnerability to fucking authentically align yourself with that. It's going to be uncomfortable when your behavior starts changing, when you start doing things that your friends that you've gone to school with for the past 6, 10, 12, 13 years. Again, it's going to require vulnerability. You're probably going to get some funny faces. Not everyone's going to agree with the changes you're making. And the vulnerability is putting yourself in that situation and being okay with that. And being okay with the feelings that come up in you, because it's uncomfortable. And that's what this is coming down to. The reason you don't want to be vulnerable is because it's uncomfortable. It's just fundamentally uncomfortable as a human being. And we're wired to behave in groups and to basically get caught in groupthink, and we don't want to go against the pack. That's how we're wired biologically. And so when you start doing that, it's uncomfortable. But the good life of living authentically requires that to a healthy degree. There's obviously good reasons why God and reality has sown in these biological impulses, so you don't stray too far away from the main group opinion. Yeah, I just wanted to do a video today, guys, on vulnerability. I hope you found this insightful. I've probably missed a bunch of points, but from now on, I'm actually just going to be filming a video a day, and if the quality is to a level that I'm fairly happy with, then I'm going to post it. I'm going to do my best to cut out the bits where it's a bit of a lag and dead time. But I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Leave a thumbs up, drop a comment about what your thoughts are. I've been thinking about this topic for a very long time now. I've been reading a lot of Brené Brown's work. She's got a great book on the gifts of imperfection, I think, and she talks about the importance of vulnerability and a bunch of other things. And I've also been reading a book lately called Models by Mark Manson, How to Attract Women Through Honesty. And that has been a fucking awesome book. And to be fair, that this topic of, he talks about vulnerability, and that was actually the book that kind of opened my mind to realizing, holy shit, there's actually a lot of juice to understanding this topic, beyond just the, opening up about your emotions and all that kind of stuff. So I'd highly recommend that book as well. Anyway, guys, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you around. Alright, guys, thanks.